welcome to another episode of Anatomical Gangster, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of health, wellness, and the science within our bodies. Today, I had a great conversation with Dr. Amir A. Rashidian. Dr. Rashidian is a renowned chiropractor, an author, dynamic speaker, and he's the founder of the Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Center, and he's a true champion of holistic health solutions. He's got a profound dedication to addressing the root cause of health issues, which we really dove into in this conversation, and he's transformed countless lives through his innovative approach to wellness. In this episode, we explored his journey, his groundbreaking books, The StressProof Life and Cracking the Stress Secret, and his insights into turning stress into a powerful tool for success. If you're new to Anatomical Gangster, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below, share this with your friends, and of course, comment after you listen to it. Give me feedback and what you learned so that we can keep the conversation going. But for now, get a glass of water, sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by Dr. Amir A. Rashidian's story and wisdom. Let's dive in. Well, Dr. Amir, thank you again so much for coming on Anatomical Gangster and sharing a little bit about your journey and your story. And of course, I definitely want to talk about your book, The StressProof Life, and that second book, Cracking the Stress Secret, because these are big topics for me and my practice and what I do. So first, let's talk a little bit about you and your foundations and your inspiration. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what inspired you to pursue a career in chiropractic and holistic healthcare solutions?
Yeah, first off, thank you so much, Sue. This is an honor. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to just having a nice conversation. Hopefully, we'll give some value to all your audience and your followers. I chose to become a doctor when I was 9 years old. My dad and I were traveling through these remote villages in Iran, and in this one village, a woman went into labor. She was in tremendous amount of pain, and no one knew what to do to help her. A midwife walked over, knelt down, examined her, stood up and said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. There's no heartbeat. The baby's not alive, and this woman's not going to make it." So her husband was right there, and the two of them are in tears. And at the age of 9, I'm looking into the eyes of this young woman who was just told she's not going to live another few hours. And I started to have this panic attack, when your heart's pounding, your chest feels tight, you're having trouble breathing. Tears are coming down my face. And my dad saw me, he picked me up, he helped me, he carried me out of there, he calmed me down. The two of us climbed down the mountain. We got in our car to drive home. And on the drive home, I said, "Dad, I don't want to feel like that ever again." "Like what?" "Helpless. Like there's nothing I can do." And he asked the greatest question of all. He said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll go be a surgeon. I'll be the best surgeon in the whole world. I'll carry my medical bag with me everywhere I go, and I'm just going to save lives." 10 years passed. I was 19 years old. I was a student at George Washington University, pre-med, planning to go to medical school. And I went home for Christmas break, and I walked into our house, which was in Gaithersburg, Maryland at that time. And I walked in. Dad had this big, thick white neck brace on. You could tell he was under the influence of some heavy painkillers, and he was limp and numb from the shoulders down. He couldn't even lift his arms to give me a hug to say hello. And so we spent my Christmas break, 6, 7 weeks, going from doctor to doctor, trying to figure out what is wrong with Dad. And every doctor we went to said, "This is beyond my scope. You're going to have to go to this other doctor." And finally, we ended up in a neurosurgeon's office. This neurosurgeon took one look at my dad, said, "You needed surgery yesterday. What are you waiting for? You've got these bone spurs and degenerative changes in your spine, and they're narrowing the canal, pressing on your spinal cord, and it literally is choking the life that flows from your brain to the rest of your body. That's why your arms don't work." And he said, "We need to operate." And Dad was terrified of surgery. He didn't,
Of course.
and as he should be.
Who isn't
And
afraid of getting cut open?
exactly. And so now, and dad was 70 years old at the time. But
Oh, yeah, so
there's
yeah.
such a thing, Sue, as a young 70 and an old 70. He wasn't the young type 70-year-old. He was older. And so I'm with him, and the neurosurgeon says, "We're going to slice you open from the base of the skull to the bottom of the neck. And we're going to break and remove the bones in the back of your spine to take pressure off your spinal cord. Then we're going to put these rods and screws. We're going to screw them into your spine. We'll fuse your whole neck. You'll never turn your head again. You may not regain function of your hands, but we're hoping you'll have less pain. And there's a chance you'll die because this is a pretty serious surgery." And so we got in a taxi to go home. Actually, we talked to 3 neurosurgeons. After the third one, we got in a taxi to go home. And if no one knows what a taxi is, it's like an Uber. And and I'm in the back of this car. And I was holding dad's x-rays and MRIs and CTs and medical records and charts. And I look over at my dad sitting next to me, and he's got his, neck brace, and he's cringing because every bump that taxi
Oh,
hit
yeah.
is sending this lightning bolt of pain through his entire body. Looking in his eyes, I could tell he just didn't want to live anymore. He was tired. And I started to get emotional, and I emotionally I got transported back to that village where I saw the woman slowly die in her husband's arms. But now I'm looking at my own dad in the same helpless situation. I had never wanted to feel helpless again. And I started to get a little teary eyed. And when this taxi driver looks at dad and I in his rearview mirror, and he said, "Sir, I noticed you're in a lot of pain. And I know you asked me to drive you home, but there's a chiropractor right down the street. And I don't know exactly what he does, but I've heard he helps people like you. Would you like me to take you there?" Well, I was a 19-year-old know-it-all. So I go, "No, we're going home. He is having surgery next week." Dad, being terrified of the surgery, he's like, "We'll try anything." So he said, "Yeah, let's go to the chiropractor." So we divert and go over. And long story short, this chiropractor took those MRIs that I was holding in my hands and started reading them and looked at them and looked at my dad, said, "I can help you. I'm not going to, put you on painkillers for the rest of your life. And I'm not going to put rods and screws in your neck. What I will do is with my hands adjust to little by little get some of the pressure off the nerves and the spinal cord. And when we do, and we start to restore some curvature and alignment into your spine, your body will begin to self-heal and self-regulate. It will actually start to repair." Well, that sounded really weird to me because I thought the only way to get better was drugs and surgery.
And voodoo, clearly.
Yeah, yeah. And but dad was wiser, and he said, "Well, how long is it going to take, and what's it going to cost, and all of that." And they went through all of that stuff. And it ended up being fairly expensive because he needed to be in there 6 days a week for
Mm,
6 months. He said, "You have to give me
wow.
6 months. This is pretty serious. Most people might get better after 12 to 24 visits, but yours is going to take 6 months, 6 days a week." And dad agreed. And now he couldn't even work because he couldn't use his hands. My dad had a passion. He loved writing. He always was writing letters, poems, jokes, stories. He couldn't even hold a pen to write anymore. And so anyways, we go through this process, and halfway through it, he wasn't getting any better, but he said, "At least I stopped getting worse." But 6 months later, he walked into that doctor's office. He walked up to the counter. He picked up the pen with his own hand, and he signed his own name on the sign-in sheet. It was the first time he could write again. He was so proud of himself. He held the pen up over his head, started walking back and forth, showing everybody that he could actually raise his arms. And the
Wow.
receptionist was crying, and everybody in the reception area was laughing because they didn't know why this old man's walking around with his pen held over his head. But every time he had to go in there before, the receptionist had to write his name for him because he couldn't do
Mm.
it. And so that day and after that, dad lived another 18 years. He lived to be 88 years old. And at 88, he was younger than when he was 70 because he would get up and go work out and enjoyed his life. He was traveling, he was hanging out with his friends, being active, doing all the things he loved doing. So I saw that and I said, "Wow, you can change things on the inside of the body and you don't have to cut them open. I want to learn how to do that." So I went to
Yeah.
chiropractic school and became a chiropractor, and the rest is history. That was 25 years ago. Now, well,
Yeah. I
me
mean,
going to chiropractic school was 25 years ago.
yeah, I think there's so many times where I hear these types of success stories, and I know sometimes people think that's just like it's got to be voodoo. I think no, chiropractic is one of the oldest manual therapy types of techniques, and of course, it always has to do with the chiropractor, the person themselves. But I have seen time and again, and even for my own body, I always say, hey, if you want to get a surgery, go see a surgeon. If you want to get better, go see a body worker of some sort, because they're not going to cut you open, and they're going to allow the body to heal itself by restoring the pathways that allow us to heal. And our spine is so important. For me, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with a cervical stenosis. I was 20 some odd years old from cycling, and they were like, "Oh, you're eventually going to need surgery." I'm 54 now, and I still haven't had surgery, but I'm sure that I still have some sort of a stenosis. But the mindset of doctors, when they feel that they can anticipate your future, or like they have a crystal ball, well, someday you'll have this. And I think to myself, Are you sure that this is a real thing? And with chiropractic care, while you're saying it, it takes time, and it also takes someone's belief that that time is what it's going to take to get better, and you're willing to put in the time. And I would ask you, I mean, I'm sure that you see it a lot where people don't, they would rather have a surgery and deal with 6 months of recovery from that surgery, and that may or may not work, rather than spending money that may be outside of their health insurance, taking the same amount of time, but actually getting better long-term effects, right? So I'm curious with your practice, because I know that you're the owner of Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Center. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you started the center, and did you have anything that you had to overcome to get people to realize that chiropractic care was something beneficial?
Yeah, obviously everyone has challenges. You know, when you go to chiropractic school is similar to medical school. You take your basic sciences for the first 2 years, then you sit for national boards, and then you specialize in chiropractic for another 2.5 years or so. And at the end of that, you come out wanting to start a practice with no business knowledge whatsoever. Not only that, if you're in the referral cycle, you'll get patients, but chiropractors are not. You know, because when you have an issue, you typically go to your primary care, who sends you to the specialist, and then the specialist sends you to physical therapist. And if that doesn't work, they go back to the specialist, and then they get referred to a surgeon. But none of that involves chiropractic. And nowadays, it's pretty neat because I am getting a lot of referrals from medical doctors. Primary care doctors are referring. A lot of pediatricians are now referring newborns and infants to chiropractic care, which is fantastic. We have a couple of neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons who send us patients and say, go there first and then come back and we'll see if you still need surgery. So times have changed, but I graduated chiropractic school in the year 2000. And it was 1989 when the Supreme Court ruled that chiropractic is valid and medical doctors should work with chiropractors. 1989 isn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So until then, chiropractic was quackery. And so that's the challenge, is to, get people to walk in the door. Now, once they walk in the door, they're so amazed and so impressed, and they experience such miraculous changes that they never want to leave. And that's why I have patients that have been with me for the whole 25 years I've been practicing.
Yeah, and you've also, hit the nail on the head. I often say that people in the therapeutic world, whether it's chiropractic or anything, rolfing, massage, they get the education, and then what? Like, they're great at what they do, but they're terrible at business. And running and operating a successful business sometimes takes on even more thought and work and everything than just treating a client. So I'm sure that you've run into that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the benefit of chiropractic having been approved and accepted. Every federal insurance policy accepts chiropractic and reimburses, Medicare included, even private insurance, they all have some type of chiropractic benefit. So the data and the evidence is very, very high. And also chiropractic, because of the scientific groundwork that it's laid on. So for example, when patients come to us, the first day is based on just running tests. We do a computerized nerve scan, surface electromyogram, thermography. We'll do functional neurology assessment to find out what part of the brain is not receiving information from the body, because brain sends information to the body but also has to receive that. And a lot of times the problem isn't how the information is getting out there, it's how the information is being received.
Well
Whereas you
said.
can't feel your right leg properly, and it may be very subtle and you never knew it, but we do some tests where you'll close your eyes and march in place and you'll turn to the right. You go, why did I turn to the right? There's something wrong. So we'll do some more tests and find out what brain center needs to be activated. Then we take x-rays. We take a full set of digital x-rays, top to bottom, and we draw lines and make measurements. Every bone has a specific position it needs to be in. For example, the first bone in the neck needs to be angled up at 14 degrees. If it's less than 14 degrees, you're susceptible to things like ADD, ADHD, sleep apnea, insomnia, depression, anxiety, mood swings, headaches, migraines, dizziness, lightheadedness. So, and you may not be having those things, But if that angle is less than 14, I guarantee you're going to get it if we don't fix it. And so we design a plan of correcting it. Then we take post x-rays to find out if the changes that you needed are actually the changes that we got. And if we didn't, then we need to course correct and find out. So a lot of times, practitioners may not do the work up front before they put you down on the adjusting table and start doing the adjustment. And that, unfortunately, that's not a true chiropractic adjustment. That's called manipulation. And anybody can manipulate the spine, but only a true chiropractor can adjust.
And so you are that it's nuchal chiropractic that you specialize in?
No, we have our own style and technique. We use various
Yeah,
techniques
that's what I
from
thought. Yeah.
diversified to upper cervical to Gonstead to Thompson drop, and we utilize all of it. There's a lot of pediatric techniques that we use as well.
Wow.
Prenatal care, Webster breech techniques, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's so powerful because, like I said, not all therapists are made alike. And I think when you can actually get measurable data, it's so much more powerful and far reaching when you can actually identify certain aspects of the body and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Let's see if we work to correct that because all this looks good. Let's enhance the good stuff. Let's try to fix the stuff that's a little off and see if we can meet somewhere in the middle. I think that's pretty awesome. And I also saw on your website for this conversation that you've had over 20,000 patients that visit annually. So share a little, I don't know, particular, like maybe a memorable patient success story that highlights the impact of what your work is. I know you talked about your dad, but in your particular practice.
Yeah, there's so many. There was a little boy, his parents were both patients, and they always talked about getting the little boy checked eventually at some point, but they didn't. But they would tell me that he has asthma, and he had a pretty severe case of asthma. And then whenever he would catch a cold, the asthma would get so bad he would end up in the emergency room, and it would be life-threatening. And but they kept putting off getting him checked. And one day they called, they said, listen, his little boy's name was Alan. They said Alan's caught a cold, and he's got the same asthma, and he's pale and he's weak, and we want to take him to the emergency room, but since based on what we know about chiropractic, can we swing by and have him see you first, and then we'll go to the emergency room? And I said, certainly. So they came by, I did the full analysis, and I found areas where he needed adjustments and gave him the adjustment. And I said, listen, he's probably going to sleep after this adjustment. So let's see how he does. And I said, get him back here. This was probably 5 p.m, or it might have been later. And so I said, get him back here 8 o'clock tomorrow morning when we open. I want to see him first thing again. And so 8 o'clock came around, they didn't show up. 9 o'clock, they didn't show up. 10 o'clock, they didn't show up. Finally, like 10:30, they walked in, and Alan wasn't in the stroller. He was running. He ran over
Wow.
and
Yeah.
jumped and sat up on the adjusting table, and his color was normal. And I said, what happened? Did you go to the emergency room? They said, no, he did what you said. He fell asleep. And then in the morning, he was sleeping. And for the first time, while he was sleeping, he wasn't wheezing. And so we decided to let him sleep. That's why we didn't come at 8 o'clock. We wanted to let him sleep and wake up on his own
Mm.
before we brought him back in. And so that was one of those little miracles where the human body is so perfectly designed and created that you take pressure off the nerves that allow the body to function properly, and the body will do what it's supposed to do, what it's designed and programmed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I so relate to that. And even now, right now, I'm dealing with a 84-year-old mom who fell and broke her femur.
Oh
And now
no,
she has foot drop from that.
I'm so
And the
sorry.
doctor says, oh, no, that's her back. And I thought, well, I mean, she didn't have drop foot before the surgery. So you're saying her back is the problem now. Well, if that's the case, let's do a nerve conduction test. And if it is in her back, let's find a chiropractor before we go doing anything else. So we're kind of on that road because I always feel like before going down a road of anything medical,
Yeah.
the best thing we can do is to work chiropractic wise and see if we can do it because her quad wouldn't even fire. And I got that to work, but we'll keep trying for that tibia, but that's kind of tough
Well,
stuff when
at least she has you,
I
and
know
and,
it's
and
good
that
she's got an
that's a
added bonus. Yeah.
blessing.
Yeah, for sure. So, we talked a quick bit, but I want to talk a little bit about your books and your philosophy, because you've got your first book, The Stress Proof Life. And in The Stress Proof Life, you're offering insights into navigating life changes. So, talk a little bit about the key messages you hope that readers take away from reading your book.
The reason I call it stress proof is because you can't eliminate stress.
Yeah,
It's
life
all
is
around.
stress.
What's that?
Life is stress.
Life
That's
is
what I say. You
stress.
can't you can't get rid of it. When people say abolish your stress or get rid of your stress, I'm like,
Exactly.
what are you going to do? You're going to ruin your life. Like, you're going to divorce your husbands and wives, return your kids to the hospital, don't do your job anymore, don't watch television. I mean, life is
Right.
stress. That's what it is.
Exactly.
So,
The
yeah.
best way to reduce stress is leave your family and quit your job. But
No,
there's a story. Vincent Peale was counseling someone, and the guy said, if I didn't have so much stress, I'd be healthier. He said, let me show you people who don't have stress. Takes him out on a cemetery and says, the people underground are the only ones in this world who don't have
that's
any
right.
stress.
That's
And
right.
scientists actually proved that. They took amoeba, a single cell organism, put them in a petri dish, and they removed all stress. So they gave them the perfect temperature, perfect amount of food, perfect environment. They gave them, Tempur-Pedic beds and flat screen TVs. They gave them everything. These microorganisms, and they all died prematurely. None of them lived, and it's because stress sustains life, and life requires stress. So if stress is part of life and it's required by life, it's like gravity. You can't live without it. You need it,
Yeah,
but you need to have a stress-proof vest on so that it doesn't harm you. So I came up with the simple seven simple things you can do to increase your body's tolerance to stress. And that first book is all so I wrote the book to my patients because they were doing the same thing this gentleman was doing with Norman Vincent Peale. They're complaining about stress. Like, I'm just so stressed out. I wouldn't be so sick if I didn't have stress. And the fact is, there's people who have more stress and they don't get sick. And there's people with less stress who are more sick. So it's not about the stress, it's about how you're handling it. And
that's
so
right.
it's a mind switch of how can I
Yeah.
become more resilient, more tolerant towards stress? Proper sunlight, proper water, proper sleep, nutrition. When it comes to nutrition, you've got toxicity and deficiencies that you have to meet. And what kind of exercise is going to improve your tolerance to stress? Believe it or not, exercise is not cardiovascular or musculoskeletal. Sometimes it's neurologic. So you need to do neurologic exercises. One of the best ones is crawling. Crawling creates this cross crawl pattern in the brain that
Mm,
connects the hemispheres of the brain and improves neurologic function. Or walking with your arms swinging. Most people are pushing a shopping cart, holding a dog leash or a stroller when they're walking. Their arms don't move. Well, that's not going to do it. You need
right.
that cross crawl firing pattern. So anyways, those are some of the things we talked about in that first book. And bottom line is this, with the first book, how healthy you are is determined by how much stress you can safely handle.
That's
So
right.
so so we do a special type of heart rate variability, which has a very unique algorithm that doesn't just tell you how much stress you can safely tolerate, but also tells you where your resting state is. So if your resting state is fight or flight, it's not because you're upset or angry, it's because your body acts like you're upset and angry even when you're not. And
Hmm.
so unless we fix that, it has nothing to do with psychology or emotions or thoughts. It's everything to do with the physiology of the nervous system. So we have to correct that. And some people are in fatigue, in adrenal fatigue, and they don't even know it. And so we have to support that system as well to bring them back to a balanced autonomic system. Then we can increase their stress tolerance. And so it's kind of like we call it GAP. GAP stands for General Adaptation Potential. It's the amount of stress you can safely tolerate before you become susceptible to illness and injury. If your gap is narrow, a little bit of stress makes you sick. That's the person, the wind blows, they catch a cold. They catch a cold in the summer when it's not even cold. That person, or they bend down to pick up a penny off the floor, they throw out their back, or they sneeze and they blow out their back, or they hurt their neck, or something gets pinched. Those are people whose gap is low. So little things cause injury, and little changes in environment cause them to get sick and ill. So we increase the gap. And that's my entire practice is based on that one concept, is we need to increase your gap, your tolerance and resilience towards stress, so that you can have that stress-proof vest that no amount of stress can knock you down or hurt you. So you can carry the burden that you want and still be able to move forward. That was the first.
Yeah. It's so, and what Dr. Mir is saying here is, I mean, I feel like we are like jumping up and down saying this. I'm like saying yes, because first of all, I don't think that the human body was designed to be comfortable all the time. And I think people are always trying to make their lives so easy. And I'm like, you make your life so easy, you actually become kind of limp to life. You don't have resilience. Something comes in and you're like, oh, now I can't do anything. I think, my God, my mom broke her leg. I broke my foot. My mom's in a hospital. I got work to do. I feel fine though. Like my emotional resilience, my physical resilience is great. And this whole idea of this autonomic nervous system, right? You've got your stress, but then the body's ability to repair, parasympathetic, right? Some of us, like Dr. Amir is saying, we're in that high stress state all the time. Your nervous system actually thinks that's the regular place to be, is always in high stress. And at night, you can't fall asleep. You can't stay asleep. That cellular repair isn't happening. You're waking up the next day with a backlog of stuck stress. And you're right, wind has to hit you. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm dying. So I think that this is a great message. I hope everybody is hearing that. And you also have a second book that you wrote called Cracking the Stress Secret, which I like because everybody likes the secret. I want to know what that secret is, where that second book, you're refining how we view and harness stress. So elaborate on maybe one or two strategies that you discussed for turning pressure into power in cracking the stress secret.
You got it. When my father was still alive, one day he asked me why I was working so hard. We were in the process of opening our second location. And so I was seeing patients during the day, managing the staff and the other doctors, and then still working on opening another office and marketing for that as well. He said, why do you work so hard? Aren't you worried about your health? I said, of course. But what use is, because I understand success is worthless if it comes at the expense of your health. I get that. But let me flip it around and ask you, what use is good health if it comes at the expense of your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, your desires, and your future? Do you really want to sacrifice your dreams just so you can stay healthy? Because that health is worthless. So you're healthy, but you have nothing you ever wanted to have. And so that started this whole thing of, I need to write this to entrepreneurs because they have goals and dreams. They're burning the candle at both ends and it's affecting their health. I don't want them to stop burning the candle at both ends because their business will tank and they won't be able to succeed. So how do I make them successful? Because just like I said, health in the first book, how healthy you are is determined by how much stress you can safely tolerate. Now we can say how successful you are is determined by how much stress you can safely handle and tolerate as well. And in fact, your income is determined by how much stress you can safely handle. How many zeros you have in your bank account or your net worth is also determined by how much stress you can safely tolerate and handle. Because when I was a small practice with 2 employees, life wasn't that hard, but to me it was. Because where I was, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not responsible for the income of 2 other people. And I have to manage this business that has 2 employees and take care of the patient. So now fast forward, we got over 10 employees, 2 locations, and we see thousands of patients. But my stress level is the same as it was. My tolerance has gone up, so that doesn't seem as hard. When you're in first grade, your spelling test is 3-letter words: bat and cat and hat.
I love that.
12th grade, those words are easy. You don't worry about that anymore. So that becomes easy. So now you're dealing with 10-letter words, much bigger. And when you go to college, that changes. Your tolerance keeps going. You need to constantly grow and constantly expand your life. So the ultra successful, this is the second book, have 3 things in common. Number one, they have a different definition of stress. So that you ask for strategies, but the strategy is this: is you have to have a different definition of stress. Everyone goes, oh, stress is so terrible, it's so bad, but they don't ever feel that way. Stress is a force. It's a force that causes change in your life. Literally, that's the definition of stress. It is a force that causes change in your life. Like gravity, it can hold your feet on the ground or it can cause you to fall and get hurt. It's the same thing. You can't say gravity's good. You can't say it's bad. It keeps your car on the road. It keeps your house on the ground. You say it's good. But then when you fall off a cliff, you say gravity's bad. It's just a force, like fire. It can cook your food or burn your hand. Money, it can fund terrorist activity or it can put your kids through college. Either way, right. Money is not good or bad. It's just a force. It's something you can use. And so that's the definition of stress, number one. Number two thing that everyone has in common that are successful is that they have a different relationship with stress. So you can either fight stress or you can invite it into your life. That's the reality. And once you develop that relationship with stress where you go, okay, this is the next thing I have to overcome to go towards my goal or my dream, as opposed to this is the next thing I need to get rid of so you can be more comfortable. Well, aging is the unnecessary or unrealistic pursuit of comfort. That's aging. That's the definition of aging, is when you're constantly pursuing comfort, which is what retirement is. And what do
Right.
we
Well, that's
do
what
when
I just
people
said. We're not
retire?
designed to be comfortable. We're
Right.
not designed to be comfortable. That's why so many people go into retirement and their whole body falls apart. Or an athlete who has been doing the same drills and the same stuff, and then they oftentimes get injured, and then they don't do that anymore. And as they get older, their bodies have the worst experience. And I tell my dancers, I'm like, listen, if you danced competitively or professionally when you were younger, by God, keep dancing when you're older. Keep dancing just for fun, and allow your body to move the way that it knows how to move. Otherwise, if you get comfortable, that means that you have not enough stress to keep you motivated and in the game to go, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Very nice.
So how practical applications? Give me a little bit of this. How
Well, yeah,
can it?
and the third part
Oh
is
yeah,
that
sorry, yeah.
they never try to reduce stress. So their focus is never to reduce stress. And so to make it even more practical is you need to understand that life comes at you in three dimensions. It's physical, it's chemical, and it's psychological. And all three dimensions have to be improved if you want to increase yourself in your level of wellness. So most people think wellness is a marketing term, or it's just a fad, or what does wellness mean? You got wellness pharmacies and wellness clinics and wellness massage therapists and wellness gyms. What is wellness? No one knows what true wellness is. So here's a definition of wellness, because I define stress for you. And I'll define the word health in a minute, but the word wellness is the degree to which health and vitality are experienced in those three dimensions of life. How much health and vitality do you experience in the three dimensions of life? Now, to improve then, by that definition, to improve wellness, you need to improve each dimension simultaneously. You can't just focus on the physical and expect results. I see people in my gym, they've been sitting on these exercise equipment day after day, month after month, year after year. Their bodies haven't changed. They still look the same,
Yeah.
but they're exercising, they're sweating, but they're not addressing the other two dimensions. Second dimension is chemical, right? So, like I said in the first book, feed the deficiencies and remove the toxicity. You have to do it both ways. The last one, psycho-emotional, where's your mindset? Because your thoughts determine your emotions, which lead to your actions, which create your habits, which determines your character, which leads to your destiny. And so you have to make sure you're so imagine these are all three coins, right? So you've got the physical dimension. It's a coin. Every coin has two sides. So one side means move and exercise. What's the opposite of that? Is rest. So
Rest and
you've got to
recovery.
do
Yeah.
both, and you have to balance it. So you want to get really super practical on how to improve your life. Pick one thing you're going to do in each dimension: physical, chemical, and psycho-emotional, and then make sure you balance it. So say, hey, I'm going to exercise 10 minutes a day, and I'm going to rest an extra 10 minutes a day to recover. And I'm going to program rest with the exercise. Chemical dimension, one side of the coin is proper nutrition. The other side of the coin is toxicity. So if you keep putting good food in, but you're not removing toxins from your environment, it's not going to work. And then the last one, psycho-emotional. Well, feed yourself positivity. Everyone gets that. But there are these limiting beliefs we carry around with us
Yeah.
that hold back all the good stuff. And you don't feel good. So you have to analyze, how am I feeling right now? Do I feel good? If I don't feel good, it's because of a belief. What is that belief? Oh, the belief is I never have enough time to get everything done. Oh, okay, got it. Well, then have I got things done in the past? Yeah. And the things I didn't get done, did it kill me? No. Maybe I didn't need to get it done. All right. Well, I'm not going to be upset about that, and work on that. So when you improve, so there's 6 things, right? 3 dimensions, 2 sides to every coin. You improve each one by a little bit. So an example, I had a patient who was extremely overweight, and he was addicted to opioids because of his back pain, and just in a very bad environment, ill, and he decided he wanted to change his life. So he started coming and getting chiropractic care so he could stop taking the opioids, which helped. But it's not really making him totally healthy. He has to do other things. So he decided to start walking, and he started to jog, and he started to, run, and he was doing 5-6 miles every other day. and that helped too, but then he needed to improve his mindset too. So he started asking people for jokes. He said, tell me a joke. Everywhere he went, he said, tell me a joke. He kept a little notebook with him, and every joke he heard, he wrote it down. And he would look at those jokes and he would laugh. So he started laughing more, drinking more water, exercising daily, and getting chiropractic care. So he came off the opioids. He started to lose weight, and everything improved. It's because and it happened very, very quickly. And then he wrote two books. One was his transformational journey, and the other one was a book of jokes, because he collected all these jokes and he said, oh, I'll just publish this. And so they even helped his financial situation too. But you've
Yeah,
got to improve
beautiful.
all three dimensions. You can't just focus on one. You can't just say, hey, I'm just going to eat better. It's not going to work.
Well, and I think that's it when people talk about transforming their lives. It's never just a thing like this, like if I just do this one thing, or if I just have more money, or, if I get that job. I'm always like, there's never just one thing. And I really like that idea that there's, there's six things, because you've got sides of things. You have to exercise and recover. And by the way, recovery, everybody, isn't just about sitting around and not moving that day. Active recovery is something, right? That's where melt, or doing stretching, or just going out with friends and going for a walk, or talking and getting excited about what you're going to do. This is all part of recovery. So I think this is all huge messages for everybody. I hope everybody's listening. This is all great information. So because I want to talk about so many other things. So on the business and your entrepreneurial shift, because, you've really done such a great thing. And it is hard for a lot of people to go from being a chiropractor and practicing and consulting to expanding the business. So maybe two questions, like were there any common mistakes that you see new chiropractors in practice make, and how to avoid them? And maybe what qualities do you think are essential for somebody to have that's looking to establish a successful chiropractic practice?
That's tough, because if I was to start over again, I would do it very differently. I believe in the world we live in, there it's better to be an intrapreneur than an entrepreneur. And
Mm-hmm.
the difference is the intrapreneur will join someone else's practice and grow that practice, buy into it, and retire wealthy, as opposed to starting something from scratch. And I think that's the better route to go for today. Today, there's, and I know there's areas of the country that don't have chiropractors, and there's more pediatricians and more primary care doctors than there are chiropractors. The chiropractic is not that big. And in fact, the actual profession has only been around since 1895. So that's when chiropractic became chiropractic. So it's not that it's been around much. It's literally the youngest field in healthcare, but it's the second largest after allopathic medicine. So there's room for growth, but I think that growth needs to be in unification, where we come together and work together. That's why I have three other doctors that work with us, because I think we provide better service and we can cover for each other. We can still manage to take our vacations, and our patients don't suffer for that. So today is very different. But if you do want to start your own practice, I think you have to be very passionate about what you're doing. You have to have a clear definition of what your purpose, mission is. You have to have your core values set. You need to understand a little bit about how business works. You need to understand some about marketing. There's a lot that goes into it. So just like how healthy you are requires you to not just do one thing, you got to do multiple things. Business is kind of the same thing. And unfortunately, it's very hard. It's like a chef who wants to start their own restaurant. They know how to cook, they know how to make amazing meals, but they have no idea the type of regulations
Right.
and facilities and all of that stuff, and then managing staff and hostess and waiters and waitresses and everything else that goes into it. Where do you put the tables, and how do you align the tables to maximize your revenue, and all that's the stuff you need to learn. And so that's why I always say, find a mentor, find someone who's been where you are and is where you want to be, and talk to them and learn from them, and then do what they're telling you, because a lot of it sounds, you're gonna be like, no, I know better, but there's no way you know better. So get some good advice. But ultimately, I think and if anyone listening to this is a chiropractor, and you're looking for a place where you can be an entrepreneur, call me. I'm always hiring chiropractors.
I love that.
So we
Yeah,
can't get enough.
I think you're right. I mean, why reinvent the wheel in this day and age? I think if you can collaborate, connect with one another, and grow a more thriving practice, I think in the end, if what you have is a real passion and a purpose to help people, it's definitely easier than being an entrepreneur and starting things from scratch. And I mean, I know all about that. And it's, it takes a real dedication and belief that you can transform lives and you can do this thing, and you just have to keep at it be prepared for roadblocks, be prepared for problems, but then when they come, don't get stressed out, right? Like meet your barriers and work through them rather than trying to
Yeah,
blast through them and hurt
everything
yourself.
in life that's good comes with stress. If you want to have a family, that comes with stress. If you want to have a great marriage, there's going to be stress there. If you want to
For sure.
have more children, yeah, you're going to have more stress. And if you want to start a business, you're going to be faced with stress. Just like if you want to go for higher education and get more degrees, all of that comes with stress. Anything that's good comes with stress. So instead of trying to eradicate the stress, just invite it, embrace it, use it, and become better.
Well said. Well said. Now, on public speaking and outreach, I want to talk a little bit about this because you are the co-host of the Real Health podcast. So, in that, I think you do it with your wife, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Yeah. So, tell me about maybe the most rewarding aspect of sharing health and wellness strategies with your listeners.
We found that we were doing it anyways. We're constantly reading articles, what's in the news, what's coming up, and we'd share it with our patients, and they always said, "Wow, you guys are so well read," or you know what the latest thing is. And I said, "Well, that might be a good thing to start sharing with everybody." And my wife is so brilliant. I call her an honorary chiropractor because from the neck up, she knows more than any chiropractor I know. She understands physiology and anatomy and everything that goes with health and wellness. She understands nutrition. She understands essential oils and vitamins and minerals and
Beautiful.
everything there is. I mean, she can talk about autoimmune disorders for hours. So, and her and I would talk about all this stuff, and we'd have a lot of fun just sitting there chatting. We're like, well, let's just turn on the camera and record and see what happens. And so that's where it started. We've been doing it for, I think, a little over a year and a half. I think we just recorded our 89th or 90th episode.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. I mean, even for me doing a podcast, it's really, I just love learning from people and having great conversations and sharing them with people that I know. Everybody always has, so much to say about it and writing me. And, I think it's just, that's kind of the meaning of life, is to love one another and learn and experience and
Yes.
grow. And I love that. So, I mean, you're talking about, you're working a lot. You've got a podcast that, of course, you do with your wife, but how do you, like create work-life balance? So you have this busy schedule, really great career. How do you balance your professional responsibilities with your family life?
I do it by only doing things I love and enjoy, because then there's no separation. And this is controversial, and it may not be for everybody, because I know a lot of people who work with their wife, and they separate. Business and pleasure is totally separate. The home life is different than work, and they have boundaries where at home they don't talk about work, and at work they don't talk about home. We tried that for a couple of years, and it created tension and stress between us, where
Mm.
we weren't happy, because then I'm at home and I remember something I want to say, but I can't say it till we go back to work the next day. And it wasn't like that. But we're both so passionate for what we do, and we love what we do. It's not work anymore. It's a hobby. It's fun. And especially growing. I know it takes a lot of work. It's blood, sweat, and tears, literal tears at times. But it's like someone who is passionate about bodybuilding. I know you enjoy lifting weights and building your body. You're very fit. Like you look forward to your next workout,
Yeah.
even though you know you're gonna, especially legs day, right? You're gonna go do legs today, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know that drop set is gonna kill me. And
Hmm.
and then, or when I do a superset with like leg extensions and leg press together, they're
Exactly.
gonna be burning so much, and I'm gonna be out of breath. And sometimes you can even psych yourself out and go, maybe I shouldn't do it today, but you go and do it, and you feel amazing afterwards. This is the same thing. So you're not you personally, Sue, you're not going to the gym because you have to. You're going because you get to go. And so someone else is going to the gym because they have to, because their cardiologist said, unless you go and exercise for 30 minutes a day, you're going to have another heart attack and die. So that person is not going to get the same benefit. So for me, work-life balance comes down to that, is there's no work. It's all life. All of it is life. And so we may be in the middle of a workday with patients filled up in the office, and one of my sons will call me on the phone, and I'll take the call. I'll tell the patient, hey, my son's calling. And he'll be like, hey, Dad, can I play this video game? And I go, I'm not going to answer that right now. The answer is no. Let me look at it when I come home. I need to know the rating. I need to know how many downloads. Is it for teens? Is it for kids? So don't ask me right now, but I get off the phone. But it's all life. I mix it up. I mix it all up, and I don't try to balance it. There's never going to be balance. It's always going to be off balance. There's going to be times where I focus more on home, and there's times where I focus more at work, and my family knows that. And like my kids, I make them come work in the office. So I have a 14-year-old son, an 11-year-old son, and an 8-year-old son. The 8-year-old hasn't worked yet, but the other two come to the office and work. And I'll bring them in on their days off, and I go, work. I'll pay you, a little bit, but you come work, because you need to know what dad does, what mom does at the office, and it's family. It's all life. There's no work-life difference. It's all one. And if it's all one, I don't have to balance it. I just have to live it.
That is beautiful. And I think that's such a great philosophy. I mean, I say that too. They're like, oh, I don't want to bother you because you're always busy. And I'm like, am I really busy? I don't know. Like that might be in your perception. They're like, well, you're always like on and working. And I'm like, I'm just living my life. You can call me
Yes.
anytime you want. Like my life just might not look like everybody else's, but I know where I can commit and where I can't. I say, hey, I can't do that. I'm going to do this. And you're right. I mean, I also think when people think of exercise, I ask them, why is it that they're exercising? And a lot of times it's because they don't like themselves. And as the root cause, they don't like themselves. And so they want to, they're beating themselves up to feel different. And I think, if you came from a different perspective where you thought of your exercise as being something that was giving time back to you, that was doing something that was caring for you, rather than beating the shit out of yourself in a gym for an hour and sweating and, screaming in a cycling class or whatever, but you're actually doing it more because you love yourself and because you know that it's good for you and it's going to do good things. I think that we all need to come from, again, a better place of loving thyself, knowing thyself, trusting thyself, in why we are doing the things that we do in the first place, whether it's work or whatever. If work is like, oh la la, I got to go to work again today, I hate my boss. Well, that's probably why you have back pain, is like, it's a thorn in your side all the time. Stop and think about that. And I think it's tough for people to think, gosh, well, what am I going to do? Change my career, change my job? And it's like, maybe, when things go wrong, I think I always go from the idea the universe loves us. It wants us to be happy. And so if we come from that place in ourselves, that sometimes we get fired or we're really frustrated with our job because the universe is trying to push us out of that because there's something better for us somewhere else. I think that's something maybe of my own personal belief, but anyway, I digress. So let's talk about your future goals, because you've got this Mid-Atlantic Chiropractic Center. You must have a broader effort in promoting holistic health. It sounds like you're still, like wanting to grow. What are some of the future goals that you have for your business?
Our brand is very unique, and it's because of the analysis we do up front for our patients. And so I would love to just open up more and more offices and continue to plant centers in different communities, and just get it out there as far as possible. One of my personal objectives is to establish an institution that will outlast me, so
Beautiful.
that when I'm gone, it'll keep doing good. It'll keep serving. And that's bottom line. So there's no stopping. When we got married, I told Brandy, just so you know, I'm not going to retire till I'm 120. And
Perfect.
she said, well, I want 12 kids. And I
All
said,
right, let's
great,
meet in the middle.
great, we'll renegotiate after the third one. And then she was okay with three, and we stopped there.
I love that. Yeah, three. And there was like, I know I said 12, but I was kidding. We could get a gerbil, maybe a cat. We'll fill in the blanks.
Right.
So Dr. Amir, I have one last question for you. I ask everybody who joins me on Anatomical Gangster the same question, so I'm going to pose it to you. If you could tell somebody, you met somebody who was struggling with life, if you could tell them something that you've learned in life that if you shared it with them, it might change the course of their life and think differently about their human experience, what would it be?
We we choose our beliefs. And going back to the universe being friendly, uh, I think that's a choice, because what you choose becomes a belief, which filters out everything that contradicts that. Because the person who believes that we live in a hostile universe, and I think the quote is attributed to Einstein, right? He said the most important decision you make is whether we live in a friendly or a hostile universe.
Yeah.
And so you have to choose. But the person who decides, no, this is a hostile universe, they're going to see all the bad stuff, and they naturally filter out all the good stuff, and they won't see it. They're constantly noticing the bad. Oh, it's really cold. Oh, it's really, I don't know, dark, or whatever it might be. Or there's too many bad people out there. Or there's too many stupid people out there. This and that. And the person who, like you, believes, hey, universe is friendly, and it has my best interest at heart. You'll find all the evidence you need to support that belief. So you said the person says they hate their job, or they hate their boss, or they don't like going to work. If you want to love if you want a job that you love, you need to love the job that you have.
Mhm.
So, and chances are that person, first off, that person chose that job. They didn't have to do it. So they chose it. Why did they choose it? It's because there was something about it they liked. Even if it's just a paycheck, there's something. So you focus on that, and decide that, hey, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to bloom and blossom where I'm planted. And if the universe has a better option for me, then it'll tell me. It'll unplant me. It'll pluck me out and move me somewhere. And wherever it takes me is going to be better than this, even if the journey is painful or uncomfortable. So I think you pick what you want to believe. It's because beliefs are decisions. Decide what you want to believe. I believe in God. I believe there's a God. I believe God, that we were created by God. We were created to be self-healing, self-regulating, and our bodies are not flawed. We're not designed to fall apart, decay, and get sick. We're all going to die, but there's a good death and a bad death, and you can prolong life or you can prolong death. I'd rather prolong life.
I love that. I love that. So if people want to find out more about you, maybe to do speaking engagements or listen to your podcast or get your books, where are they going to find you the easiest?
The books are on Amazon, and Barnes and Noble, and every bookstore. And then my personal website is drrashidian.com, and our office website is midatlanticclinic.com, and our YouTube channel is called Real Chiropractic. And you can find the podcast there, plus all the other videos that we do. And I think that's probably enough. You'll learn a lot about me. You can contact me directly through both websites. Messages will come to my office and they'll send them to me, or you can call the office and ask to talk to me. I'll get on the phone with you.
And where is the Mid-Atlantic Center?
It's in Frederick, Maryland.
In
Two
Maryland.
locations, both are in the city of Frederick, Maryland.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, maybe the next time I'm in Frederick, Maryland, I'll have to come in and check out your clinic. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has enjoyed this conversation. It was a pleasure to meet you. I'm so grateful that you
Likewise.
reached out to me on LinkedIn. And for those of you guys who are watching, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Again, make sure you subscribe below, share it with your friends, reach out to us, and let us know if you have another brilliant person that I should be chatting with to learn more. And until we see you again on another Anatomical Gangster, be happy and healthy and enjoy your life. We'll see you soon.